Hello, Southern California, and welcome to this week's edition of Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management, and I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today. The title of today's show is Roth Conversions, Overlooked or Overhyped. And you're definitely going to want to stay with us throughout today's show. We're going to be sharing a lot of valuable information with you, including an awesome resource that you can use to assess what your potential tax bill might be in retirement and what steps you can be taking even now to help reduce it. Tom, my friend, always good to be here with you. How are you this week?
I'm doing great. I'm about to break out laughing really big time because of what we were talking about right before the show came on. Yes. I got a feeling. I used to be a football coach, right? And I got a feeling this is some of the stuff we want to talk about today. And you were asking me the order of certain things, and I just sat here and stared at you.
Yeah. There was nothing. There was no response.
I know. It's like, what play do we call when, folks? We've got a lot of stuff we're going to cover today, and we're going to figure out how we're going to cover it as we go through the show. But it's all on Roth Conversions, okay? And it's all on that, and I'm doing fine. I couldn't have a subject that I'm more excited about, and we do have a ton of information. We've touched about this in some previous shows, and the response to our 𝗢𝗃𝗲𝗄𝐺 where you can go on and you can find out what your tax bill is going to be, whether it's on the radio stations that we're on here in Southern California, or our YouTube channel, or even just some of the, we're on the radio stations with our shows, with our commercials. We're on the digital side of that. We're talking about it on television shows, and I'm amazed at how many people are responding to Ease My Tax Bill to a certain level. They're responding in that they know the issue now.
Right. Yep. They're awake, as you said. The light is on, right? They're out of the dark.
There are. And what my fear is that I've alerted so many people to an issue that they need to take care of. And my fear is it's a little more serious than just a Band-Aid or just something that's small or easy to fix, because there are some major issues that you need to do before you really get into tax harvesting or Roth conversions. They're all related cousins. It's like they all go to the same family reunion, if you understand. There's some really big issues. And one story to tell you is I trained with Ed Slott, who's known as America's authority on IRAs and 401ks. And at our recent training, he told the story of a guy he's trying to help, who about a year and a half before had figured out his Roth conversions, figured out his tax harvesting. He was working with Vanguard. It's the biggest do-it-yourselfer type organization out there. And he got all of his tax harvesting set in his mind, and he punched the button to do it, and he had made a mistake somehow, and he harvested completely a $2.1 million IRA.
With one click of a button.
With one click of the button, pushing himself for more than 3/4 of that into the absolute highest tax bracket. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to tell you that can happen. That is something that you can make a mistake on this easily. We're going to talk about in this show, I'll introduce the overview a little bit. We're going to talk about how it can be the greatest thing since peanut butter, but it can also be stale bread, if you understand, which doesn't make a good peanut butter and jelly sandwich, if you know what I mean. So you need to do this. You need to do it accurately. You need to do it carefully, and you need to think through the process, and you need to, I think you need to give it at least an hour and a half. And the first half hour would be this show to watch it. And I think the second hour you need to give it is you need to come in and meet with one of us. We have software that's been developed by professionals. We're going to show you some of it here today, but we have additional software that only we use once we get your numbers to tell us not what you can save, but the software we use, we're going to tell you about in the show, then tells us if we do this, whoops, be careful over here. Mm-hmm. If we do this, whoops, be careful over here, because you can do something on one side of your finances that can really mess you up on the other side. Yep. So are you overlooking Roth conversions, or are they overhyped? Do you not need to do them at certain times? That's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes, and as you were sharing that, Tom, it made me think of, it's a bunch of tax landmines that folks are trying to navigate through, and that's why you can't afford to look at any one of these decisions in isolation from each other. We do say this on the show a lot. How you make a decision in one area of your financial life can and will impact all the others. That's why you have to look at things from a comprehensive, holistic perspective, and that's especially true with taxes. Now, I know you said we'd figure it out as we go. Here's my thought. Let's walk them through Ease My Tax Bill, and then we'll spend the rest of the show talking specifically about Roth conversions, and we will do, go through the solutions in depth.
Let me set it up with one additional thing.
Okay.
What we're talking about is converting your IRA that's in a bucket of money. Let's call it a bucket. I grew up on the farms, bear with me. A bucket of money that forever, as long as there's money there, it's going to be taxed at regular income. We are talking about a regular IRA or a regular 401k, 403b. We are talking about paying the tax and converting it over into a Roth IRA. In that Roth IRA, the key word is not forever like over here you're going to be taxed. The key word is once you get it into that bucket, it's never taxed again. The growth is not taxed. The money that gets into that bucket is not taxed ever again. Never. Okay? In your lifetime. You pass away, if you're married, you leave it to a spouse in their lifetime. You leave it to your heirs in their lifetime. It is never taxed again. There's got to be some advantages to that, to paying the tax now and converting it. Now, one of the softwares that we use, and I specifically, in a show we did previously, and in this show, I've asked Kristen to explain it because she is so good. She's a financial educator, and she's going to educate you with how this 𝗢𝗃𝗲𝗄𝐿.com works. She's going to set it up to show you just the what, how much you can save, and then we're going to talk about, should I do it or should I not do it? What are the ramifications of doing it? What are the ramifications of not doing it? How can I make mistakes? The so what we're going to talk about in the rest of the show.
All right, so let's do it. So again, we invite you to either take your computer, take out your smartphone, and go to this site, 𝗢𝗃𝗲𝗿-𝗵𝘆𝗽.
They can do it now, right?
Yes, do it right now as we're walking through, or take your smartphone and scan that QR code, and here is what you're going to see. It's going to take you to a landing page where it's going to ask you for some simple, basic information, no strings attached. Again, this is completely free, a free tool for you to use. You'll put in your name, you'll put in your email address so that the report can be emailed directly to you. You'll put in your current age and then how much money you have in those tax-deferred accounts. Again, it could be a 401k or a traditional IRA. You'll notice at the bottom of the page there's also two sliders that you can adjust and play around with. You can adjust your assumed tax liability. You can also play around with the assumed growth rate on that tax-deferred bucket of money. Now we're going to show you an example here, because once you click submit, boom, side by side, it will show you on the left-hand side the difference between the government's tax plan for you if you do nothing, how much tax you could potentially pay over your lifetime on that tax-deferred money, versus on the right-hand side, how much less you could pay. And for this example you're looking at right here, we used $600,000 on a traditional IRA. Now, so you can see that instantly, but then you're also going to get a 4-page report report emailed to you. This is one of the pages on that report that will show you the breakdown of the numbers. You can see there at the top for this example, $600,000 in tax-deferred money, 22% assumed tax liability, a 6% assumed growth rate. And again, you see that difference at the bottom there. That is a staggering difference for folks to digest, isn't it?
It's amazing. And to explain that column that's in the black right there, it's assuming that you start paying tax at 73, the required minimum distribution age as of right now.
Right.
And you live until you're 90. Or if you're married, you or your spouse, one of you lives for 17 more years until you would reach 90. Your spouse may be younger than you. How much, the first number there is how much tax you will have to pay. Now, if you don't need that money, which a lot of our clients don't need the money when they take it out.
To live off of, right?
To live off of, so they put it into an after-tax account. Guess what? That after-tax account now continues to get taxed for the next 17 years. And the reason that you've put in a growth rate in that with the slider on that first page is you're still going to be growing that money. So you're actually growing your tax burden as you've got that money in that account. And then let's say you pass away, or if you're married, both of you pass away 17 years after you turn on the required minimum distributions. The third number down is the amount of tax that your children or your heirs or whoever inherits will have to pay in their lifetime. The total, over $800,000. Astounding.
Yep.
It is astounding.
When it's no wonder that when we have showed this tool on the show before, there's been an overwhelming response. We understand that folks are blown away when they can see that difference between those two plans. But here's the good news. We're going to spend the rest of today's show talking about the solution. You've seen the what, and now we're going to talk about the now what, right?
That's right.
And the so what of it all. So we encourage you, we're going to take a break, but again, visit easemytaxbill.com right now. You can scan that QR code, put in your information. You will have your report sent to you within a matter of minutes. And once you see those numbers, we are confident that you're going to want to reach out and schedule your time to come in and meet with one of the all-star advisors of Mosley Wealth Management to see what kind of tax plan they can build for you. That number to call is 866-709-1462, or you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with the solution for you right after this.
Fiduciary is a big word in our industry, and fiduciary means you act in a client's best interest. At Mosley Wealth Management, you are an individual. You're different than anybody else on this planet. You look different. You've got a different social security number. You live at a different address. Everything about you is different. The first visit is just getting to know them, getting to know where they are. We literally start with a blank legal pad. And at the end of that meeting, we just say, okay, you've brought a lot of stuff here. Do you want us to look at this stuff and see what we would recommend? And when I look at statements that people bring me from so-called fiduciaries, and I ask them, I say, why did you get put 50% in this and 50% in this? Many times they'll say, well, that's what the advisor said he likes to do. My question is, would I do this for my mom? Would I do this for my dad? Would I do this for myself? So you really have to sit back sometimes and say, if I were them, if I were sitting on their side of the table, what would I do? And I've literally sat in my office at least once every 2 or 3 weeks and try to put together a case for somebody where it's iffy as to whether they'll make it or not. And you have to ask yourself, what would I do if I were in their situation? And never, ever recommend something that you wouldn't do if you were right where they are.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and if you're just tuning in and joining us, welcome. The title of today's show is Roth Conversions, Overlooked or Overhyped, and we encourage you, if you have not yet done so, to visit this amazing tax tool completely free to you, our viewers. We can't stress this enough. It is so important to see what your potential numbers might be for your potential tax bill in retirement so that you can begin taking steps even now to lower and reduce it. So again, that site is 𝗢𝑖𝑠𝑚ytaxbill.com. You can get there by visiting that website or clicking on that QR code. Take out your smartphone, do it along with us throughout today's show. You're going to be able to get that report emailed to you with your numbers in a matter of minutes. Tom, we've promised our viewers for the rest of today's show, we're going to talk about the solution. Of course, one of the top solutions is engaging in Roth conversions. I want to start with the misconception because a lot of people think that they are not eligible for a Roth because there are income limits when it comes to contributing to a Roth. But those income limits do not apply when it comes to Roth conversions. So explain the difference and how a Roth conversion actually works.
Well, you can start a Roth. I mean, let's just establish that. And I don't care who you are. I started one about 2 years ago for an 83-year-old gentleman who hasn't had earned income for the last 15 years, okay? But he also had $2.3 million in IRAs that we are converting over each year. We're converting over into a Roth IRA. So many people come in, and you may have overlooked Roths because you think, well, I don't have any earned income, so I can't contribute to a Roth. Listen, you're absolutely right. You can't contribute. We're not talking about earned income being contributed to a Roth. We are talking about converting from your regular IRA or your 401k into a Roth. You can do that. You can do any amount that you want. You say, aren't there limitations? Isn't it 7,000, 8,000? Isn't it somewhere around there? There are limitations for contributing to the Roth, but converting from an IRA into a Roth, there are no limitations. And I say this lovingly. It's whatever you can stomach when it comes to paying the taxes, because nobody loves to pay taxes. So I want to be very clear that you will need to pay tax on all of that money as it converts. So why do it now? Well, I'm glad to tell you that in the year 2025, we still have in effect, call them what you want, most people call them the Trump tax cuts from 2017. Those are still in effect through the year of 2025. Now, we're promised that they're probably going to do another tax cut. They're probably going to change things. They're probably going to extend them. They may even make them bigger of a tax cut. We just know that right now the law is tax cuts are good through the end of this year, 2026. They go back up from 2 to 5% in each one of the brackets. And a lot of people say, well, weren't those tax cuts just for the rich? What a misnomer. Because in the 10% bracket, and that's not people who are rich, right? The 10% bracket is going back up to the 12. The 12% bracket is going back up to the 15. So those are not rich people. Everybody's going to be impacted by it. Right. So why would you want to do Roth conversions? I can tell you why you want to do Roth conversions in 2025, because you know taxes are on sale. They're cheaper than they're going to be until they change the law, if they change the law. So now's the time to take advantage of it. And at Mosley Wealth Management, Kristen, we've been taking advantage of this with our clients for the last 4, 5, and 6 years. Because we saw this deadline coming, and we saw that rates are going to go up. And people say, well, I think they're going to cut tax. Well, good for you. I also want to remind you that that same organization that's going to cut taxes $37 trillion in debt.
Exactly.
And somewhere along the line, it might not be this administration, it might not be this year, next year, or the next year, but somebody's going to have to pay the piper for the expenditures that we've already spent. The cards have to be paid off. And so you're going to have $37 trillion of debt that needs to be paid off. I just feel like, no, it's only logical to think that taxes are going to be higher in the future. In fact, I've asked that in our seminars for years, and I've never had anybody raise their hand and say, I really think they're going to be lower in the future. Nobody really feels that way. So why do it now? Now is the time to do it because tax rates are low. It's really important.
And the sooner you start, I should say, the more you have time on your side to do this systematically. As you shared that horror story at the beginning of today's show of a man who was trying to do this on his own and inadvertently ended up converting his entire, it was over $2 million, right?
2.1.
With one click of a button as a mistake. You are saying that you look at each client situation and you figure out how much to systematically convert over time so that you aren't inadvertently bumping someone into a higher tax bracket, therefore causing them to pay more tax than they necessarily need to. Again, this is the whole process of Roth conversions, is taking money that's not yet been taxed, that's sitting in an always forever tax bucket, and systematically moving it over to a bucket that will never be taxed again. And that is just such a beautiful thing, but it takes time and it takes planning.
Well, okay, excellent the way you laid that out. Let's talk about how much time you might have. If you're 65 years of age, and if you're different, just adjust the ages. At 73, you're going to have to start taking required minimum distributions out of your IRAs and your 401ks. And bad news, they will not allow you to take required minimum distributions at age 73 out and put those into a Roth. Then you have to have earned income in order to do that. So from the time you're 65 until you're 72, so 65, 72, rapid inclusive, you got 8 years of work you can do. You can break your IRA down and harvest it out over 8 years. And that would hopefully keep you in the correct tax brackets and not push you into a higher tax brackets. But let's talk about tax brackets. They are irregular. You go from the 12, you jump from 10 to 2, that's a 2-point jump.
10 to 12, yep, 2-point jump.
And you jump from 12 to 22, that's a 10-point jump. You don't want to do that if you don't have to. And then when you get to the end of the 24, because at 22, you only jump to the 24, and then at the end of the 24, though, you jump 8 points up to the 32% tax bracket. So you want to avoid that one, and you want to avoid that 12 to 22 if you can. So what we do is we try to keep you within reasonable tax brackets, convert as much as you can. So what's the most you've ever converted? Once we converted a guy and we're still working on it, he's still not 73 yet, and he started with $4.2 million in his IRAs and his 401ks. But he's down to less than half of that now. Hey, that's a huge sum to convert.
Right.
But he's down to less than half of that's still in his IRA, and over half of it now is in a Roth that'll never be taxed again.
Which is an amazing thing. Music to his ears and to all of ours, right?
When we come back, we want to talk about some reasons maybe you shouldn't do Roth conversions.
Because it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. So again, if you have not yet visited this amazing tool, completely complimentary, to see what your numbers might be, that's the first step. Visit 𝗢𝑠𝑚ytaxbill.com. Again, you can go to that website, click on that QR code, put in some basic information. You'll get that complimentary report emailed to you. But then we know you're going to want to reach out to see how you can systematically start solving this problem for yourself. And to do that, we invite you to come in for no cost, no charge, no obligation. It's simply an invitation to have a conversation with one of the all-star advisors from 𝗄𝐠ley Wealth Management to see how they can help and serve you. And that number to call to book your complimentary meeting is 866-709-1462. Or again, you can get connected by scanning that QR code. As Tom said, when we come back, we're going to be talking about when is it not the best case scenario to do a Roth conversion? When may it not make sense for you? Stay with us to find out.
You've got quite an extensive resume. Wow, so many years of management. Bet that was fun. So this job requires basic knowledge of the social media and video platforms, content creation, and SEO. How proficient are you in those areas?
Going back to work after retiring is not ideal. I'm Tom Mosley with 𝗄𝐠ley Wealth Management. If you have amassed a nest egg, it's time for a financial advisor to help you reach your retirement goals. This is one of the greatest tax windows in history. Now is the time to take advantage of this tax discount while you can. We specialize in retirement planning, tax mitigation, estate planning, and much more. Plan your retirement right. Call now for your portfolio review and tax analysis. . Think your retirement savings are all yours? Think again. Your 401k, IRA, or pension comes with a tax bill from Uncle Sam, and it could be bigger than you expect. Want to find out how much? Our quick and easy tax calculator can show you right now. Just scan the QR code or visit 𝐒𝐈𝐴𝑠𝑚ytaxbill.com to see your potential tax hit and how to plan around it.
Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm Kristen Oakley, and today we've been talking about Roth conversions, overlooked or overhyped. And before the break, we mentioned that now we want to discuss when might it not be the right case for someone to engage in a Roth conversion. I know you have some powerful examples to share with our viewers about that.
Absolutely. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal. There was an article in USA Today, all within the past 3 or 4 months. And they were talking about, oh, how are you going to make sure you have money in your 90s? Well, you might want to do Roth conversions today. There's some reasons, though, not to do Roth conversions. Recently, I had a gentleman who had with IRAs, and he also had a lot of capital gains. So he had a lot of taxable events coming in his life. He had over $10 million. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to convert all of his IRAs into Roths, and there was close to $5 million in those. Mm-hmm. And we always try to help everybody we can. We love to work with everybody that we possibly can. This gentleman at first got a little bit upset with me, but I refused to convert his IRAs into Roths. Now, why did I do that? Because he was just taking his required minimum distributions out, very little tax he was paying, and he had no heirs. He had no sons, no daughters, no family, no nephews, no nieces. He was leaving everything he had to a long list of charitable organizations. They're going to get that money tax-free anyway. Mm-hmm. So why pay the tax on it, convert it into a Roth, and leave a Roth to a charitable organization? Doesn't make sense. We've already mentioned several of these others. Number 2, another reason not to do it is if you're going to bump yourself into a much higher tax bracket. The guy who did the $2.1 million in one wrong push of the button, bad move, okay? That was an accident. Jumping from the 12 to the 22, wrong button. Probably don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. Jumping from the 24% tax bracket to the 32% tax bracket. Wrong button. You probably don't want to do that. Your Medicare at $206,000 of income, you're going to bump up your Part B and Part D. Probably don't want to do that. And your capital gains. If you're making less than $98,000 this year, you're not going to pay any capital gains that's in that $98,000 worth of income. It's a zero tax bracket. Wrong button if you do that. We'll help you make the right move if you'll come in and see us. The tax bill will show you the what. We can sit down with you and show you the so what.
Tom, thank you so much. Again, it's not a cookie cutter approach. There's no one size fits all. There's no substitute for coming in and sitting down in the financial planning environment and seeing what would be right for you. So again, we encourage you to visit 𝐒𝑖𝑠𝑚ytaxbill.com and then reach out to schedule your complimentary meeting, 866-709-1462. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We'll see you next time here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.